Hello everyone, happy Monday, I love you. Sending you a big virtual hug wherever you are on the earth plane right now. Okay, so many of us are going through what I'm about to share, and I want to dissect it so that you can understand what's going on. Most of us that are watching this video are evolving. Actually, the entire human collective is evolving, right? So we're going from a lower state of consciousness to higher states of consciousness, becoming new over and over and over again. One of the things that happens as we begin to do this courageously, by the way, is that the ego, which has always been driving us, leading us, guiding us, telling us what to do, what not to do, what we should, what we shouldn't, what's safe, what's not safe, right? The aspect of it that says, you can't do that right now, you're not ready, you can't do that, you don't have money, you can't leave your partner, you're going to be alone for the rest of your life, right? This really dictatorship type of leader. That's the ego. God bless it. And what's happening is we're starting to begin to hand the baton over, the leadership over to the higher self. And the higher self is an aspect of you, just like the ego is an aspect of you. But the higher self is so much more aware of the higher dimensional realms, or it's much more aware of who you are and what you're here to do, what's for your highest good, what's going to bring you the most joy, abundance, peace, expansion, and freedom. You see, the ego is designed to keep you safe and contained in this lower dimensional realm that we're in. Okay, the world that we're in right now. And it does a great job. Keeps us very safe. It tries its best to make sure we don't have any pain or trauma. Don't feel this, don't feel that, right? The higher self has you in a lens that says you're safe to experience anything. The higher self says, I know exactly what is next for you that will bring you more joy, more peace, more abundance, more love. But you have to trust me. And because we have learned to trust the ego, so we do what the ego says, and then we know what the result will be. If I follow the ego, I know that the ego will produce what it says it's going to produce. If the ego tells me not to break up with my partner right now because I won't find somebody for a while, I know that that's been the case the last 30 years of my life. So I'm going to follow the ego's advice. The higher self would say to you, sweetheart, or gentleman, trust me. As soon as you let go of this partner, you will be free to bring in the partner that is for your highest good. So it's very, very challenging at times to trust the higher self because we haven't done it. But this is what's happening right now for many of us. The ego is starting to have to learn how to let go of controlling you. And so what it feels like is a heck of a lot of insecurity right now, a lot of irritability, a lot of frustration and doubt. You're doubting yourself like you never have. You have more insecurity than you've ever had, right? You're in this place of, what direction do I go? I don't even know what direction to go. I don't even know who I am right now, right? I don't even know how to even intend anything. This is you trying to figure out who has the baton, higher self or ego, and who to listen to, where to go, where's my direction supposed to be at. It's much more comfortable to follow ego. But the aspect of you that's the higher self is calling you in over and over and over. And so there's this like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And when the ego starts to quiet, many times people call this like an ego death, right? But when the ego starts to quiet, it can start to get really loud. It can start to make you doubt what the higher self is saying. It can start to allow you to really beat yourself up. Say mean things to yourself that you haven't said in years. Critiquing and criticizing yourself when you haven't done that in a long time. Beating yourself up, all of a sudden it's like you're getting angry and mad at yourself, right? That's the ego fighting to stay in charge. It's fighting to stay in charge. And your higher self is saying, please trust me. I promise you, although you can't hear me as well as the ego, I promise you that I am going to bring you into the most amazing life you've ever lived. That's why I'm with you. That's why I'm inside of you. And the higher self is a voice, just like the ego is a voice. People say, how do I hear the higher self? How do you hear your ego? How do you hear your ego? It's a voice. How do you hear your higher self? It's a voice, because it's you. And it's a softer voice. It's a gentle voice. And it is a voice that has no duality. It doesn't tell you what is right or wrong for you to do. It is not mean or aggressive. It is not authoritative. It is not a should or a shouldn't. It is unconditional, deep love for you, constantly nudging you to follow its guidance. When it's guidance, you will have no knowingness around it, whether it's going to unravel or not, other than following it. Meaning, you're not going to have proof until you follow higher self and get the proof. We have to start trusting and following higher self, just like we have ego, in order to understand that the direction that higher self is taking us pans out. But this is new for us, for many of us. And so following a voice that's new, following what we haven't ever done before, patterns that we've never done before, the higher self knows that you're worthy of everything. The ego says, no, you're not. Last time you thought you were worthy of something, remember all 7 people that told you opposite? So the ego's always protecting you. It's doing its best to make sure you don't ever get hurt again. And the higher self says you will never, ever, ever need to worry about that. You are safe. Trust me. This is why I'm here. And the higher self is the intuition within you. It's your resonance. It's your energetic field. It's what feels right to you. And you will begin, when you start listening to higher self, you will doubt it. You will question. You won't know if what you're about to do is going to pan out. But if it is the voice of the higher self, it will pan out. You have to just start trusting it. It's always going to feel like a leap. It's always going to feel like you're jumping into something until you start to stand side by side with ego. You wrap your higher self. You wrap your arm around higher self. And you say, okay, I'm going with you. Do this. The higher self has been designed to guide you into these higher states of consciousness, which is why so many of you are struggling back and forth between trusting this voice and falling back to the old ways with the ego. It's like your head's swirling and you don't know which way is up. You're so confused and insecure and doubtful and all of it because you are evolving, because you are shifting the baton from the ego guiding you, keeping you in the lower states, and the higher self taking your hand and saying, please trust me. I promise you I've got you. So the best way that I can tell you how to listen to the higher self, it's the voice inside your head. And it is soft and it is subtle and it has no opinion or judgment. It will ask you to trust it. It will ask you to do things that perhaps you've never done before. And you can argue with it. You can talk to it. You can do anything you want with it. Have a temper tantrum with it. It's always going to be there. Always. And the more that you can begin to communicate with it, have a dialogue with it, just like you do your ego all day long that you may or may not be aware of. You can do that with higher self. So pay acute attention right now to the voice of the ego and the voice of the higher self. Allow it all to be okay. But really listen to the difference between the two. Because you right now are learning how to step away from ego guiding you and into the higher self guiding you. This is really where the rubber hits the road. And it's not easy all the time. It can really feel like you're losing your mind. Literally, just practicing this one step in evolution, moving the baton from ego to higher self, can literally make you feel like you're losing your mind. That you all of a sudden are super insecure when you've been so secure for so long. You're doubting everything. You're passing the baton, and you're learning how to trust the aspect that is you, called the higher self, or whatever other word you want to call it. And it's got your back, and I can promise you that it is going to lead you into the most amazing, miraculous life, very different than the life that you've been living, if you can trust it. So listen to that voice. Unconditional, non-judgmental, no attachment, subtle, kind of like a grandmother that you loved to see when you were a young child, right? They can't help but love you up. And they're going to ask you to do a lot of things that you don't think you can do, but you can do it. Otherwise, the higher self wouldn't be asking you. I love you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for evolving with me and with so many others on the planet. We've got this.